Here we go. Crim 5. So, here's what I've done. I have delayed so long that finally, today, some stuff happened on the news. Oh, hello, I guess I just got an email. That works perfect with this chapter. So, I think I probably said before that not in regards to this chapter, but to other chapters, this is the longest PowerPoint I've ever seen in my life. This one is the longest one, but I'm going to whip through a lot of it. Yeah, this is like ridiculously long. So let me go back here. We're talking about maintaining order, conflict management, and dissent. Your discussion question, I think it was for this week. We talked about, I was asking you, what do you think the police should do in our current state where we are, we are under, we are in the, what the heck do you call it? Shelter in place orders for the coronavirus is when I'm recording this. So I think I asked you, how should police get involved and how should they? Well, everything is starting to, get pretty amped up. And today specifically, it's May 1st. May 1st was a day that a bunch of citizens decided to protest. And the protest was, they're saying open California, okay? Quite a few places, Huntington Beach and the Capitol up in Sacramento are some places where they've been doing this. So it's been going on today. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. As of right now, I have seen people get arrested, like on the news, but I don't know. But anyways, so that's kind of what we're talking about. Change. How difficult has this period of time been for all of us? No matter what your circumstances are, all of us are having to adjust to change, and no one likes it. No one likes change. Okay, maybe not no one, but most people don't like change, and people want to get back to normal. This change that we're living under right now makes us uptight. It makes us anxious. It makes us, some people, scared. It definitely, the anxiety is there. We, as citizens, have a right to nonviolent protest, and that is exactly what's happening today. Who has to get involved in that? You guessed it, the police. So there are different kinds of dissent. People can go and march peacefully. People can go and march violently. I saw something on the news yesterday, I think it was in maybe Michigan or Illinois, where some citizens with like assault rifles were standing on the mayor's front porch or something, or governor's front porch. It seemed kind of crazy. But there's different levels. In California, it's been peaceful marching, where people have gone up to the governor's residence and said, "Let our people free." A lot of people feel like they are being held back illegally. When Target is open, but ma and pa smaller shops are not, then people are starting to feel like they're getting treated unfairly. So, change versus order. We like things to be the way they are, the way we're used to. Nobody likes change. Why do we seek change? Well, it depends. There's a bunch of different reasons why. Right now, we have a perfect example. Coronavirus. Should we continue to lock down and slow the spread of the illness? Or at this point, we're about 6 weeks in, should we open up society? And those are two, people feel very strongly one way or the other in these two things. And it's really interesting. We all have the right to disagree. We all have the right to, or the First Amendment allows for us to have free speech, as long as people's lives aren't being endangered. Okay. Keeping dissent peaceful is the best idea, of course. This is what's supposed to be going on in Sacramento today. Resistance by the government to peaceful change leads to violence. That makes sense. If you think about it, you're going up there and you're protesting and the government resists, it could lead to violence. So again, the men who wrote the Constitution said we are allowed to dissent. The First Amendment protects us we can speak out if we feel something is not right. That's why we live in the United States. If you were in China, for example, the Chinese don't have the right to speak out. We saw this, again, back to coronavirus, with some doctors that were dealing with the coronavirus, and they were trying to release information to the rest of the world to warn us about what was going on, and these scientists magically disappeared. And then they came back weeks later and said, oh, I was wrong. The Chinese government is awesome. So, that's part of our rights as American citizen. The Constitution does not give us the right to disobey valid laws. Okay, so the new one that's come out today in the city of Fresno is that anytime you go to anywhere, basically, but grocery stores, whatever, you have to wear a mask. What should the police do if you're not wearing your mask? I just want you to think about this stuff because I think it's really important, especially now, today, right now. This happens throughout time, throughout society. So legally, protesters are allowed to march. Sometimes you have two separate groups. I believe today the majority of people who have gone to protest in Sacramento and Huntington Beach are people that are asking the government to open. But sometimes you'll have two groups with two different opinions going up to the state capitol and protesting next to each other. As you can imagine, that gets really heated, and that could definitely lead to violence. So sometimes there's two sides. Sometimes it's just one group against the government. Sometimes it's two separate groups against the government. Anyway, so classical argument, blah, blah, blah. Civil disobedience. This is, we're kind of crossing the line here. Civil disobedience is, let's say you're sitting in front of the Capitol building and the police tell you to move. Now, are you really doing something bad? Not necessarily, but you don't want to move because you want to express your point. If you don't move, that's civil disobedience, and you really could be subject to arrest. Blah, blah, blah. That's basically exactly what I just said. United States is a politically diverse nation. That's shocking, right? Okay, I'm sorry, that's sarcasm. We are very diverse in the United States. We are, we have Republicans and Democrats, liberals, conservatives, and they don't tend to agree on much of anything, which is rough. Blah, blah, blah. Communists. We don't want to be communists. Libertarian. I was just talking about. So there's all kinds of different dissent. Political dissent. We're trying to change the political party. Social dissent. We're trying to change some issue in society. Economic dissent. We want to get back to work so that we can, or get paid fair wages, any of those types of things. Religious dissent, if people feel like their religion is being discriminated against. Environmental dissent, there's a lot of people that are really concerned about the environment in the United States, so they might protest for all these reasons. Dissent must be analyzed. Okay, so the labeling process. Okay, dissenters are usually militants. I'm gonna go like really kind of quick through this part. Strategies of dissent. And dissent, dissent means kind of basically you're disagreeing with something. So yeah, and there's strategies: order, disorder, or violence. Obviously, we don't want violence to take place. Disorder is probably not good either. Typically, we want order to be imposed, changes in orientation and strategy, violent actions. Okay, so I did see some arrests today, and I'm not exactly sure what these people were arrested for, but obviously when it becomes violent, it's really hard to get your message across. And this happened during the riots in the Los Angeles area after the Rodney King verdict. There was some violent, really bad, violent protests. People were beaten horrifically. And, you could kind of understand their point. They were frustrated because they watched a black man get beaten horrifically by police, and they watched all the police get acquitted in court. So, okay, blah, third parties, role of the media. Okay, so how does the media stir the pot? I'm sure we've talked about the media so many different times you can imagine. The media likes to get involved in all this too because we're all watching. You know, I was watching it half the day today. Well, a little while today, but yeah, the media definitely gets involved. Escalation and de-escalation of conflict. Okay, so I'm watching videos today, and they had the California Highway Patrol are basically the state police. So they had CHP. They had some out there just kind of walking around in their uniforms. Then I saw shortly thereafter officers walking around in their uniforms with their batons out. They weren't hitting anybody, but they had their batons out. And then about an hour later, I saw officers standing out there in full SWAT gear. So it looked like they tried to come out to de-escalate the situation. Not sure if it worked, but as time went on, the officers, their own, just what they were wearing, I think could have easily escalated that situation. I'm not saying it's a police officer's fault. A lot of people gave the officers a lot of grief, and it was really frustrating. But persistence, withdrawal, upward spiral, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I am skipping through all this. Skipping through all this. Reasonable. I'm just going to pick a side here, not saying I believe in one side or the other, but let's say that I thought that it was completely unreasonable that I wasn't able to go to work, that I wasn't able to feed my family, that I wasn't able to pay for my rent, that I wasn't able to keep my job, and I'm now on unemployment. Would it be reasonable for me to think that it's time to open the country? Yeah, okay, so there's one side. What if my mom died from the coronavirus, and a bunch of people in my family were sick with it, and I was horrified at the fact when I went to the grocery store and saw someone without a mask on? Can you imagine? There's different points of view, and reasonableness, it kind of depends on where you stand, on your circumstances. Success, how successful are they? I don't know. Outcomes, blah, blah. I am totally skipping through all this. I hope we're almost done with this. Performance of conflict. Oh gosh, yeah. So the poor police do get involved in the middle of all this stuff, which is super frustrating. There might be some police officers in Sacramento today who believe we should open up the country. Open up the state. But their job is to enforce the laws, and that's what they have to do. So people were literally taunting the police, saying, you know, you shouldn't be here, you should walk away, this is stupid, you know that we should open up this country. Well, police officers don't have if they want to get paid and keep their jobs, they have to do what they have to do. How do they respond to violence? Oh, easily. I hope today never did turn violent. I haven't checked in lately. Anyways, okay, so dissenters, power and response of order, police and the dirty work. Police are the ones that are out there doing, you know, the dirty work for whoever. Governor Newsom it happens to be today, but it could be Donald Trump, it could be anybody. You know, the police do get stuck. Their job is to maintain order. And again, think of this as being a police officer and what kind of positions you get put in. And the fact that you really don't have a choice. If you want to keep your job, you're going to do what your boss tells you. Political surveillance. Oh, this is another interesting one. We're going to kind of go through this, though. National security, new limits on blah, blah, blah. The best solution is prevention. Close, positive contact will also allow the police and the community members to be aware of increasing tensions in a community. The police had a lot of knowledge, information today that there were going to be these protests. If they hadn't known, it probably would have been quite a disaster. Police also need to be self-aware, and they cannot react. I can't tell you this enough times. You cannot react. They were really taunting the officers today. education. It's important for police to know what's going on, being planned, being prepared, and going through your planning. Skipping crisis negotiations. Qualities of a good negotiator. Okay. I think I'm going to finish here. Domestic disturbances. If you want to slow down and go through this, you can, but I'm going to stop there.